When Lonzo Ball went down with an injury on January 14th and shortly thereafter underwent surgery to repair a torn meniscus in his left knee, which was the second of which that he has suffered in his short NBA career, the expectation was that he was going to be returning 6 to 8 weeks after completion of the surgery. Well, as we near the estimated return date based on that 6 to 8 week timeline, the Bulls were becoming more and more non-committal on when Lonzo would be returning to the lineup and ultimately was ruled out for the rest of the season, including the playoffs towards the end of the year, more than 3 months after the surgery. I'm sure for most of you also saw Lonzo's comments in his end of season exit interview where he was pretty candid with the media saying that his rehab was at a standstill and that he was going to be seeing more specialists to figure out what was going on. Well, fast forward to today and some recent comments made by Billy Donovan and Mark Eversley that although were positive as it relates to Lonzo's progress with his rehab, at the same time still could be viewed as concerning based on the delivery and the messaging, and of course as it relates to Lonzo's injury history as well. And that's what we'll be talking about in this video, along with a brief recap of the Bulls Summer League game versus the Knicks, even though that was pretty uneventful. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, I don't want this video to come off as me being alarmist, even though I'll admit it is a bit alarmist. I generally try to take a realistic and level-headed approach to how I deliver my content, so I fully acknowledge and am aware that my thoughts on what I'm about to share is a bit of an overreaction. And I'm sure we'll come back to this video by the end of next season and laugh at how worried I was about Lonzo Ball's health. Now look, I've mentioned this before on the channel, and I don't think it's really news to anyone. If you followed Lonzo's career in the NBA, it's no secret that he hasn't been able to stay healthy in each of the 5 seasons that he's been in the league. The most games that he's played in a given season was 63 games back in the 2019-20 season. His rookie season, he suffered from injuries to his shoulder and his knees, and in fact had surgery to repair that torn meniscus on his left knee. Yes, the same knee that he underwent surgery on this past season that sidelined him for the rest of the year. In his sophomore season, he suffered multiple ankle injuries, which sidelined him for a handful of games. When he was with the Pelicans, he suffered similar injuries to ankles and shoulders, as well as a hand injury. And again, none of these being major injuries. Like, we're not talking about ACL tears, broken legs, injuries that put a player out for an entire season, but there are enough minor injuries to keep him out of games. And you have to wonder if at some point all of these injuries are going to take a toll on Lonzo's abilities as a player to be an impactful basketball player on the court. Alarmist, yes, I know, but I don't think you can downplay the amount of injuries a player has sustained and not being able to stay healthy when they're only 24 years old. It's not like this is a player that is in their mid-30s that is experiencing all of these injuries. Now, back to the comments that really brought on this video, because really we haven't heard that many updates on Lonzo's progress and the status of his health so far this offseason, aside from his dad, who guaranteed he would be ready to start the year, the same guy who also said that Zach Lavine was going to the Lakers because he didn't want to play second fiddle to DeMar. Yeah. But shortly after the NBA draft, we got to hear from Bulls GM Mark Eversley give a press conference to the media, and he was, of course, asked questions regarding the status of Lonzo, and he was fairly vague, stating that Lonzo has been making progress in the right direction, and they were happy with the progress that's been made thus far. However, when asked if the season were to start today, would Lonzo be available to play based on the progress that has been made? And he stated he would have to check with his team's performance staff and trainers and defer to them, which we all know if the answer was yes, Eversley would have just said so. So we can take that answer as a no. He would not be ready to play in an NBA game if they were to start today. Now, last night at the Bulls Summer League game, Billy Donovan joined the broadcast on ESPN2 and was asked a variety of questions, but there was a lot of focus on the health and status of Lonzo Ball, and Billy responded with, quote, "Every day he seems to be improving. I think the progress he has made has been steady. He keeps showing that progress, and that's really what we all hope to continue to see." He then added, "We're obviously all hopeful that it will happen faster, but he is making progress." So very similar messaging, even a little over 2 weeks after Eversley's comments. He seems to be progressing. I don't really like the word seems there. You kind of hope for something a little more definitive. I mean, especially since it's been nearly 6 months from now that he's had that surgery, when the recovery time was an estimated 6 to 8 weeks. But hey, progress is progress, I guess. But look, that's the thing that I find the most concerning about this situation, is that here we are, 6 months after Lonzo Ball last played in an NBA game. He had surgery that was supposed to be a 6 to 8 week timeline to return. And here we are still wondering whether he's fully good to go and completely healed from both the meniscus tear as well as the bone bruise that have been bothering him before the actual torn meniscus. Like, anytime the front office or coaching staff tries to put a positive spin on this and say, well, progress is being made, let's not forget that Lonzo should have been available to return in March. The fact that we're still talking about progress being made toward a full recovery still in the month of July is a problem in my view. And I'm sure there have been players who have suffered 2 torn meniscuses to the same knee in league history. I'd be curious to know actually how they recovered over time. But that's the thing that has me concerned, is that it's possible we're talking about a much longer recovery that could even lead into the season and could even impact his long-term health and whether he'll still have the same level of athleticism and defensive ability when he actually comes back. It kind of leads me into the Goran Dragic signing, as Billy Donovan spoke about Dragic on the broadcast as well, because when you look at it purely from a roster construction standpoint, why would the Bulls sign another guard to the roster when the focus should be on front court players? You already have Zach Lavine, Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, Dosunmu, and Kobe White. You could even add Dalen Terry in there since he could play the 2, or even DeMar DeRozan, he can play shooting guard as well. Why even bring in a 36-year-old Goran Dragic who's clearly past his prime? Well, I think Kobe White is ultimately going to be moved, but aside from that, you'd have to think there is some concern about Lonzo's health. And knowing that as great as Ayo showed up as a rookie, taking on those starting point guard duties when Lonzo was out, you need a true playmaking point guard who has veteran experience, who can be your insurance policy if there is an expectation that Lonzo is going to be missing some time. Again, I know all of this is very reactionary and alarmist, and it's possible Lonzo is going to be fine and ready to go to start the season, and that his long-term health will be a non-issue. But with the way the team has been very vague about his recovery, the fact that they did a somewhat unconventional signing of Goran Dragic given the heavy backcourt of the roster, and the fact, which I forgot to mention, Lonzo said he wouldn't be making any comments at Summer League, has to lead one to believe there is more going on as it relates to their confidence in Lonzo's recovery. I do hope all of my concerns are not valid, and that we'll get to see the same Lonzo Ball that we saw at the beginning of the season last year, because the Bulls most certainly need him in his perimeter defense, playmaking, and outside shooting, as all of those aspects of the Bulls game fell off after Lonzo went down. Now, I'll briefly touch on this Summer League loss the Bulls suffered to the hands of the Knicks last night. A pretty brutal game, and that's an understatement. I'll be honest, I turned the game off after the first quarter, especially when it took the Bulls until about 3 minutes left in the first to score a field goal. It's why we shouldn't get too excited or disappointed for that matter when it comes to Summer League, because it is just Summer League. It's probably why I shouldn't have gotten so excited over what we saw from Marko Simonovic in the last game when he put up 27 and 13 and was clutch to bring the Bulls back to win the game over the Mavericks. And then he follows it up with a 1-point performance, going 0 for 5 with some badly missed shots from deep. And it was clear that when Simonovic goes against skilled, strong bigs, like he did tonight against Sims, who really manhandled Marko in this one and limited him from creating any kind of offense, that Marko Simonovic probably still is not ready for an NBA level type of game. Dalen Terry also struggled as well. He was better in the second half, but it's still pretty clear his offensive game needs a lot of work. He committed 7 turnovers in this game in just 27 minutes, while he committed 6 in the last one. Now, I do think that his role, for which he's been given at Summer League, is going to be vastly different from when he's actually with the Bulls in a regular season game. Like, he's not going to be given the green light to make some of these aggressive passes in the regular season, and also being a focal point on offense, since he's probably the Summer League Bulls' best player. When he's playing alongside DeRozan, Lavine, Vucevic, Lonzo, and the like, he's not going to have the same role on offense and will probably serve more as a defensive energizer, which the Bulls are going to need. But either way, I like Terry a lot because he hustles, but still a lot of work needs to be done on his game as he enters into the league. That being said, though, I also thought the same about Ayo, as he didn't really look that great in Summer League and was a completely different player by the time preseason rolled around. Anyway, there really isn't too much to say about this game. I mean, the Bulls were out of it when they fell behind 13-0 to start it, and ultimately lost 101-69 in a completely lopsided Summer League game. But it's a good thing the games don't mean anything. Anyway, as always, guys, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.